Hi guys, and welcome back to Maltbox, the non-chill filtered whiskey blog. I'm Andy and I'm back here today with another whiskey review. Now first things first, you will see that I'm still surrounded by no bottles, nothing. I'll be honest, the house move that we're hoping on hasn't happened yet, if it will happen at all. The difficulty I now have is that all of my whiskey bottles are in storage. They're about an hour away from where I live. I cannot get them just for review. So what I do have is one of the many sample crates of death behind me, which is a mixture of both samples from friends, colleagues, as well as industry samples as well that have been provided for review or just as a thank you for previous work together. So basically the next few reviews are going to be samples. I might as well say it, they are. Some of them, again, some are from friends. They're not all industry provided. There's some that I've even bought myself as well that I'm going to be mixing in. But ultimately, there's not going to be any full bottles being reviewed, but just for pure clarity, as always, guys, I've said it a million times before, if a whiskey's been provided, it does not impact my view on that whiskey. I've had some terrible whiskies in the past. If you need to look at the website for a few examples of those, maltboxwhiskey.com. I will not point out the specific one I'm talking about, but some of you will know which one I mean. It is what it is. I judge a whiskey on its own merits. Onwards and upwards, and on that topic, the whiskey that I am looking at today is provided by a distillery. However, I didn't ask for it, it just turned up. I don't ask for samples anyway. People reach out to me and say, would you like to try some of this? I say, yes, please, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity if I don't already have it. I don't go begging for things. So with that in mind, the whiskey I'm looking at today is this. It's from one of my favourite distilleries, Bruichladdich. Specifically, their latest Islay Barley release, the 2013 Islay Barley. There is the label. Hopefully that's showing up relatively clearly on your screens there. So this is the 8th, and as you can see, I've not tried it. This is the first time I've tried it. This is the 8th iteration of the Islay Barley series, which, as it sounds, focuses on whiskies utilising barley grown on Ireland. Now, that in itself is no mean feat, in part because it's not exactly the most, how should we say, easiest landscape to grow crops on, I guess, Islay. It is an island at the end of the day. Out there in the sea, very windy. There's a lot of salt spray going on. It's not particularly easy to get around either. So, again, this is their 8th iteration. Fittingly, it is also 8 years old. This has been matured in a combination of ex-American and ex-European oak. It's non-chill filtered, natural colour, as is the Bruichladdich way nowadays, and it's bottled at 50%. Now, all of the Islay Barley releases previously have all been bottled at 50% also. I'm pretty sure I have a bottle of every single one apart from this to date. So, again, just to reiterate, just because this sample has been provided to me does not mean that it will be getting a favourable review as a result. I base them all on their merits. And there is that nice sort of light gold colour in the glass there. As you can see, again, I'm using Glencairns rather than my usual glasses because, again, they've been packed away as well. A nice, slow sort of set of legs there on the glass, tears coming down. Now, again, bearing in mind, I've only just opened this. That has come out of a sample bottle. There's not been any air in it. That has come straight out of that. So it is going to take a little while to open up, particularly at higher strength. A whiskey of higher strength will generally take a little bit longer to open up in the glass as well. I mean, however, saying that already, it is just atypically Bruichladdich. And what that means for me is it's very barley forward. There's lots of vanilla in there. Very sort of citrusy, lemony. It's sort of like maybe acidic nature in there, like maybe lactic acid kind of thing. What I would say is, however, this is very clean. Very, very clean indeed. There's some green apple on there as well. Just coming out. I am going to try this with water, but again, I'm conscious of time and taking up too much of your time. Now, this was released in March. I'm now recording this in mid-April. I'm a little bit behind. I mean, this probably has contributed to that in some way, shape or form. Icing sugar. A bit of ginger as well. Some sort of like ginger biscuit notes, like ginger nut biscuits kind of going on as well in there. I mean, these normally retail for around 50 quid, the Islay Barley releases. And I mean, possibly a little bit more nowadays, to be fair. Maybe let's just say 50 to 60 quid, just in case. I do get comments, people, and I appreciate firstly, thank you to all of you outside, not only in the UK, but outside the UK as well. There's always going to be a price differential between what certain countries can get it for. For example, Germany have some very, very good deals on whiskey that even we can't get over here in the UK. I do get quite a lot of commenters from like the States and Canada saying, well, it's not 30 quid, it's $95 here. I totally get that. However, I can't really do much about the distribution methodology or local retail pricing and taxation. So with that in mind, just a caveat, this will probably cost more than 50 to 60 quid or local equivalent in certain countries. In some, could even be less. That's really, really opened up now. And again, just for me, the crispness, the cleanliness of it is very, very good distillate. Sort of brown sugar. Do you know what? I mean, I'm picking loads of flavours out, but at the end of the day, it's quite simple. It's a simple whiskey. But what I would say for me personally, and as you could probably previously tell from all the Bruichladdich I used to have on that bottom shelf, these kind of flavours, these kind of notes, Bruichladdich style generally, ticks a lot of my boxes personally. I like a cleaner spirit style. I like there's almost like a minerality to it for me, for Bruichladdich. Some sort of like boiled sweets in there as well. Now that I'm getting that, I'm really, really enjoying it. And I have picked up on earlier Islay Barley releases, particularly I think for me the 2010 shares more similarities to this maybe than the previous release, the 2012. On the palate. Smiling because again, some very atypical Bruichladdich notes on there for me, very almost nutty on the palate, but then again becomes very crisp. We've got more of that vanilla. We've got more spice in there now. There's a little bit of heat, a little bit of black pepper. Some of that citrus is coming back. And yeah, it is still very barley forward. And that is a phrase that I've only been really using recently. But it is there. It's incredibly cereally. It's sweet. It's almost like kind of over soaked shreddies. You know, when you leave shreddies in a bowl for too long, it's kind of got that vibe about it. But it's become incredibly crisp as well. More of that green apple, slightly tart this time. The ginger's there, providing a little bit of heat. And those boiled sweets, again, coming in there. It is quite sweet, particularly going into that finish. It's becoming sweeter. And what a finish it is long. It's warming. Very warm, and I can feel it here. It's kind of drink if you had on a very cold day, this would warm you through very, very quickly. No need to put the heating on, particularly with gas prices the way they are. Just get a bloody glass of this, and this will warm you through very nicely. I think overall for me, this is a whiskey that I ordinarily probably wouldn't add water to. What I am going to do, however, is I've had a little bit more whiskey, and I'm just going to put 1 teaspoon of water in this, because I think that's all it needs. It's 50%. It's already got a great texture on the palate, which admittedly, hands up, I did not touch on, so I do apologise. It has got a nice texture. Probably not as oily or as thick as some whiskies that I've had recently, but you know, I think this certainly still stands up to a lot of other bottlings that I've tried of late. And I've already said, you know, Bruichladdich is up there for me in terms of favourites. I don't generally have an all-time favourite. I get people at work and work events or outside of whiskey that, you know, I tell them about whiskey when they ask what I do for a hobby, and I'm like, yeah, it's pretty much whiskey. And when you say to somebody that whiskey is a hobby, they automatically just jumps to the fact that you've got some sort of alcohol problem. So it's kind of like talking them around for a start. It's like the joke's like, oh, he must be an alcoholic. Like, no, I'm not. I certainly hope I'm not. But ultimately, no, it's about the passion I have for this drink and the different varieties and, you know, different distilleries, the history, the expansion of the category into other countries as well. It's all very, very exciting. And ultimately, the question I get to ask time and time again, what is the best whiskey? Just to clarify, guys, there's no such thing because it's all subjective. Ignore all of the articles online or in the newspapers, particularly the crap tabloid newspapers that say Lidl's whiskies, best world's whiskey and all that shite. Many awards are out there, many competitions. Distilleries pay to be in these competitions. They pay a lot of money, thousands and thousands of pounds to be in these competitions. And let's just say there's a reason that some of these whiskies get awards. Take that out of it and focus on kind of your own preferences, explore as many whiskies as you can. And over years, what I've discovered is I used to have a pretty set top three. It used to be like, oh yeah, Bruichladdich, Glendronach, and maybe another one that changed every 6 months. Now, my list, my top 10 is incredibly fluid. It is changing all the time. And a lot of that comes down to season. A lot of that comes down to performance of the distillery as well. Don't get me wrong, there's batch variation. There's dodgy releases, there's good releases. And personal preference, you know, I mean, it's one of those things. You need to be in the mood for a certain dram. Sometimes things just tick your boxes, other things just don't. But what I'd say is Bruichladdich has always been up there for me in at least the top 5. There's not been a release that I've experienced in the last 10 years that has put me off the distillery, or certainly made it fall down my list. If anything, it's probably the most consistent for me, at least. So now that I've jabbered on for a little bit and given my whiskey time to open up, you can see that maybe, hopefully on the camera, you can see it's slightly cloudy. And again, that is down to that the fact it's non-chill filtered. So that's releasing those nice oils in there that you can see. Incredibly soft now, mainly sweet. We've got some honey, that vanilla's back. Icing sugar sweetness, very sort of high level sweetness. It's not deep, rich brown sugar. It is just pure icing sugar. Yeah, there's some of that green apple in there again. There's maybe some sort of like biscuit note in there as well, coming back to that barley note. But I think it's actually kind of more focused on the sweetness and the vanilla now with water, rather than that kind of barley driven whiskey for me that was this without water. Yeah, some more boiled sweets maybe. I already know that I prefer it without water, to be honest, but it's still a very, very nice, approachable dram now. And that's what I'd say, it's become more approachable for a first timer with a couple of drops of water. On the palate. Texture has stayed okay. It has lost quite a lot of its structure. Vanilla custard, straight off the bat, incredibly vanilla-y. We've got some more of that kind of fruit note. I'd say it's probably more leaning towards banana now, actually. Nutty. We've got a very oily kind of nuts, maybe like a walnut or a Brazil nut or something coming through, and it's incredibly overpowering is probably what I'd say. It's that is the standout. I'm talking, and all I can taste is these very, very kind of rich, nutty notes. Bit of chocolate perhaps on the back, a little bit of bitter dark chocolate. The finish, sweet. Getting a little bit of kind of like oaky bitterness here that I can kind of feel in my jaw. It's making me want to chew something, possibly the end of a pencil. But it has dropped off in terms of its length overall. It's nowhere near as warming as it was. It's not satisfying. I think overall for me, this is a whiskey that does just fine on its own without water. Ultimately, very, very nice, pleasant experience. Probably one that, yeah, I'll probably buy a full bottle of it eventually once I get around to it. The 2012 stuck around for a little bit longer than the previous releases, probably because the batch size went up gradually, and I believe this is going to be quite a big batch as well. Yeah, so overall, good drop indeed. And on that note, guys, I'm going to box it off. Thank you very, very much for watching. I'm on Instagram at maltboxwhisky. Maltboxwhisky. I'm on maltboxwhisky.com. Thanks for watching. See you soon.